All right, everyone, welcome back. This is, as you know, David Morgan of themorganreport.com, and I have got Mike McKibben back with me, and we are going to explore even further the real story behind the cryptocurrency idea. Mike, some people will just see this first video. They're not going to go through the 20 series that I've done on the crypto conspiracy. So for those new viewers that aren't going to go backtracking, can you just give us a brief outline of who you are and what you've done so far and why you are more than qualified to talk about this space?
Okay, I am the inventor. I know this is going to be shocking to some people, but I'm the inventor of social networking. In the mid-90s, I rebuilt AT&T's email system, handled email for their entire internal operation and all their major customers. In the process of that, I actually took over a section of Bell Labs as a private contractor and built the first interface for email that looked like Outlook. It was prior to Outlook and implemented it in 1995. And in the process, really saw an opportunity to re-engineer, look at how collaboration occurs with the advent of the internet. And to cut a very long story short, put together a team of people, raised our own money. We in total over the time raised about $20 million, all from private individuals, no institutions. And we set about to figure out what was wrong with large-scale collaboration. In 1999, we determined what was wrong with it and why IBM and Microsoft and IBM, Microsoft, Novell, GroupWise were all going down the wrong track. They were going down a groupware track. And we determined that there was an opportunity here. So we started inventing, and we invented what is now called social networking. Now, this is back when Zuckerberg was probably still in elementary school. So that was the good news. We knew we had a tiger by the tail. I went to Washington. I looked for a patent attorney, intellectual property attorney that would be worthy of this opportunity. Was introduced to a man who on paper was the right person. His name was Professor James P. Chandler III, and then proceeded to hire him as our patent attorney. He also became a director, and we set about to protect the intellectual property. What I did not know then, which we now know, is that he was also a legal representative for what generally is called the deep state, but specifically is the British Pilgrim Society. And he was advising NSA, Congress, the FBI, all major corporations. I met many of his customers, Sun, Kodak, Xerox, IBM. And what we did not know then, which we now know, is that our intelligence community with the technology community in tow was working with the British Pilgrim Society and specifically Marconi Wireless and British Aerospace. And they were working on a global communication system that would simultaneously spy on people, track people, and control information. That was their plan. It has been a plan for many, many decades. And what they saw in our technology was a way for them to unify their overall platform. And so they set about to steal our technology. So we didn't know any of that. We just started trying to monetize our technology. And then magically in 2004, we saw all of these programs, Facebook, Google, Yahoo, all emerge with our technology embedded in. And we now know that that was organized by our patent attorney and the lead intellectual property attorney for IBM, who then together organized with $40 million worth of IBM money, a donation to take our technology and give it away to everyone in the marketplace. And that way, the underlying logic is they could control the underlying platform and make sure they had a unified approach to how they were going to handle surveillance. And so that's what happened. We, not knowing that, went ahead and in 2008 sued Facebook for patent infringement. We received a patent, actually 3 patents on this technology. and sued Facebook, went through the courts all the way up to the Supreme Court. We proved on 11 of 11 claims that Facebook is infringing our patent. And then we watched, to our horror, as entrepreneurs, the federal government protect Facebook anyway. And then after that, we said, what's going wrong with our system, because the courts were not protecting us. And then we discover that all of the judges in our case had Facebook financial interests, and which they did not disclose. Right. And that became just the opening of the Pandora's box, which we now have continued to investigate since about 2013. And we have discovered the bad boys that are now attempting to take down our entire republic. It's the same people. I'm going to stop there. Okay,
well, thank you for that. And I encourage everybody to go back and watch the whole Crypto Conspiracy series, but it's pretty lengthy at this point. If you should at least go back and watch the 1, 4, 14, the Mike's interview, which I forget what number it is, and this one. So you just stayed in touch, and I thank you for that. And you have come up with more information that just revivifies and verifies everything that we already know. And this is one that you put up recently on American Intelligence Media, Philip J. Venables, Hidden King of Cryptocurrencies. So tell me about this article, Mike.
Well, in the process of us discovering who stole our invention and why they stole it and when they stole it, we began to unpack information that had largely been hidden, was not easily available. But as we have now learned about these corrupt individuals, they hide pretty well, but they don't hide everything. So in the process of us evaluating a Judicial Watch discovery release of Hillary Clinton's early emails, we discovered that she had in her personal server an overview of a Carnegie Endowment for International Peace conference that was held in early 1993, soon after the Clinton cabal came to the White House. And it was specifically a conference that included about, I'm going to say 150 individuals across the board, from industry to education to media to defense to judiciary to Congress, everything. It was a all hands on deck meeting, and the specific topic was how were we going to give the FBI a digital backdoor to all encryption on the internet.
Stop. Stop. You have to say it again, because I've gotten blowback, but people don't believe it. This meeting, all hands on deck, and the purpose was, again,
to give the FBI a backdoor key to everything that occurs that's transmitted on the internet.
Thank you.
Now, you may have heard it called the Clipper chip. That was on the table at that time. Congress pushed back on that meeting, but all these guys did was they reconfigured it, being clever attorneys, and they therefore injected all of that plan inside a National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, requirement that this backdoor key had to be included on all software, hardware, and firmware that would be used in export. So they used a trade regulation to get this key implemented. And this key is there now to this day. And at some point, our researchers actually discovered a spreadsheet that they had been developing at NIST for registering each submission by each vendor that told specifically where in their software, hardware, or firmware they would embed this key. And this key had a name. It was called the Dual EC DRBG algorithm. If you Google it, you'll find it. And it came up in a big controversy over Juniper Networks when someone discovered that Juniper, probably the largest vendor of security systems for corporations, embedded that key, and that gave the FBI, NSA, CIA, and MI6, MI5, and GCHQ a backdoor key to all technology that a company would ever purchase. And that key is there today. So our security agencies specifically wanted to make sure they could get into the back door and that there was no encryption that would thwart them in observing what was going on the internet.
Thank you. My contention has been very broad-based that, you know, the money powers basically run everything. It doesn't matter your ideology, communist, fascist, democracy, monarchy, it's all controlled by the money masters. And right. The contention or jumping off point from there is that the crypto space is just the monetary sphere on steroids. And what does that mean, David? My definition is more control, not rather than less, doing away with cash, being a cashless society, no anonymity whatsoever, and tracking, tracing, and taxing everything you do. With that as a background, agree or disagree, Mike, just start taking us through your latest article, Crypto Conspiracy Unmasked, and how this, what I just outlined, may relate to what these, I'll call them evil thinkers, have dictated they want for the population at large. Right.
Well, in looking at that conference, what we discovered is a lot of familiar names. One of them was Stephen Crocker, who eventually took over and ran ICANN for many years. And if you know what ICANN is, it's the domain name registry service. Right. So you get an address on the internet. Crocker ran that. He wasn't running that at the time. He was doing some other security system with trusted in the name. Whenever you see trusted among these people, think the opposite. Yeah. Yeah. And so we saw him, we saw Chandler Podesta was running the meeting, and the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace was bankrolling the meeting. So what can go wrong with that combination? Exactly. Because that was in 93. In 95, now we suspect the Venables, this Philip J. Venables was at that meeting. We don't see his name on that particular list, but we do find him popping up 2 years later in activities by something called the Highlands Group. And I was introduced not too many years ago into this group. And essentially this Highlands Group was organized by something called the Department of Defense Office of Net Assessment within the DARPA program. And the specific task of this group was to look at and evaluate new technologies to see how the Department of Defense could weaponize them. And so what they did is they would bring in their selected vendors into this meeting, which they had with members of the military, which, by the way, is an illegal meeting because there's no competitive bidding in this group. Right. And basically they organize their plans for how to weaponize technologies. This could be hardware, software, firmware, it could be biotech, could be computers, it could be wireless technology. It was all those things to them. We've actually since then interviewed whistleblowers who were at these meetings. So we know they happen. In one of them, this person said that Fauci was there and that he was specifically talking about biowarfare in this meeting. But in this meeting was Philip J. Venables, and he was identified as being the person at Goldman Sachs who was involved with planning cryptocurrency in those documents. So we knew that he was a player. We knew his name. And then we roll forward. I'm going to go all the way to the end of the Obama era. In 2017, there was a cybersecurity consortium committee that Obama had put up in his last few months. And when you know it, Philip J. Venables appears again in that committee, specifically focused on Goldman Sachs' cryptocurrency strategy. So that's almost 20 years later. And then since then, we knew his name, but we didn't really dig into him. And so we had some people this last week when I heard that you had a lot of pushback about the encryption and the idea that cryptocurrencies cannot be hacked, I thought, well, it's time we need to dig into this guy deeper. So one of the things we discovered is that he hid his background in his family. He's British, and he's got a very strong, his brother is a knight who is a professor at Oxford University. His father was the president of the British Psychological Society, Tavistock. Not Tavistock, it's not directly Tavistock, but they're in the Tavistock house. And so we said, okay, well, that's definitely concerning. And he is now the head of security for Google. So in 2017, he got a patent on cryptocurrency, and then he moved to Google, and he is now essentially running all corporate security for Google worldwide. And this is a British subject, and who has had 25 years of experience figuring out how to do cryptocurrency. And then in 2007, he used Fenwick and West, who used to be my patent attorney, by the way, along with Chandler. And he specifically got a cryptocurrency patent. And I'm going to summarize. We studied this quite a bit yesterday, and essentially it's a crypto patent that includes the ability to interchange stock, to sell stock. So it would be obviously something that Goldman Sachs and all the great traders would want. But it also incorporates all cryptocurrencies inside this approach. And so there are a number of different aspects to this that broaden the approach to cryptocurrency, but probably the most significant one is it is database centric. So it wants to track all transactions and store all transactions. And they've even got wording in there that they will be able to store the information about these transactions inside your body.
Right. Let me
and
pause
inside
you there.
nanoparticles.
Yeah, let me pause you there, if I might. In your article, and I'm just going to read from it. It just is segueing exactly what you said, and we're going to examine this further. Philip Venables' focus on human-computer interface digital currency reveals a sinister social credit score agenda. Note, the patents include, as you just said, biological and nanoparticle interfaces for cryptocurrency. Please expand.
That's right. So the one of the big challenges when you're running a global system where you're trying to track everyone, just from an engineering standpoint, is that becomes a huge storage problem. Where are you going to store all this data? And so if you think about that, and you're trying to track how many billion people are there on the planet, and so if you're going to build those with conventional storage, you're going to have some massive facilities to do that. What is clear that these people have done is they think they're clever, and they're engaging in their patent claim an ability to essentially write information about your own transactions in your DNA.
Amazing.
I mean, that's so freaky, but that's where they're at. They put that in there. Now, one of the things you have to realize, and you probably do, about a patent is you can't claim ownership of a particular invention unless you disclose it in your patent. So if they had not put that in their patent, they would not be able to then claim that any storage related to bio was a part of their patent. So they had to put it in their claim. And they did. And there wasn't a lot, but there was enough for them to get past the test. In addition to that, they discuss a lot about where to store this information. And they say broadly that they're going to store it wherever they want to on the internet. And then the other thing that's really just different from the message that's out there right now with crypto is they say both sides of a transaction have to be identified. And that information will be stored with the transaction. So there you have the death of this idea of an anonymity.
Right.
They don't intend for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I guess with the back door, they could go in and play around with it, after the fact, so to speak.
Yeah, well, they always have 2 or 3 options. They always give themselves options in case one isn't working. So the backdoor key is an obvious one. And by the way, I'm going to say it again, it's the dual EC DRBG algorithm. It's a specific algorithm that was developed for the NSA that has a flaw in it that only they know. And so in exploiting that flaw, they can open up anything that was created that has that capability in their software or hardware. So if you don't believe that, there is a list out there where you can actually go see the reports of the software and where those algorithms are embedded in various products, hardware, software, firmware. Now, since that discovery was made 2 or 3 years ago, they've genericized their spreadsheets, so you can't see that anymore. But our researchers had found earlier lists, and so you can go see that out there on the internet.
Mike, if you don't mind, I'm going to digress and take a bigger view about this patent thing. It seems as if, you're a lawyer, not knowing any better, way up the food chain, so to speak, turns out to be a member of the Pilgrim Society. Yet we're talking about these patents that Venables has got. Is the patent situation where if you're part of the club, the patent is valid, everybody's happy, and if you're not part of the club, your patent is ignored? Is that too plain English?
That's close. I would say that's certainly true. I think that the more sinister aspect of our patent system, and for some reason, as much as as well documented as this fact is, nobody's screaming about it. And that is, in 2006, a company in England called British Serco, which is managed by 2 knights related to Churchill and the whole Pilgrim Society, are running it. And the Serco was given the contract to process all patent filings in the United States starting in 2006. And to this day, they process millions of patent applications of our innovation coming out of American, anybody that files with the patent office. And as you know, the process for patents takes maybe 20, 30 months to get through. The entire time, that data is being shared with the British. So the British are getting access to all of our best ideas. Why wouldn't somebody in Congress speak up about this?
Yeah. So I think I want to go ahead and conclude. I don't want to push you off. I could talk to you for hours. So your conclusion is the Venables are one creepy family of psychopaths who want to rule the lives of all of humankind. Let's close out with that. Take as long as you want, and we'll just we'll keep visiting this topic.
Well, if you look at his patent, he in it identifies certain companies that are clearly his darlings. One is IBM, one is Microsoft, another is Citibank, another is Goldman Sachs, and another is Google. He specifically uses those companies in his examples of transactions. And then we see from his resume, his LinkedIn resume is more clear about his history than we ever knew about him. And one of the things that we discover is that he is a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
How rare.
His last job at Goldman Sachs, he had about 6 positions, all related to computer security. His last job, he was a director. He's a director of the corporation. He then moves over. He got involved with Perkins, Kleiner Perkins, and a couple of companies that do data mining at a network level. And then he moved over and is now running all computer cloud security for Google. So when we know that Google is a government agency, and so what we see here is that there's a very clear intent to make sure that anything related to cryptocurrencies is going to run his way, not any other way. It's great being emotional about the idea of a in the clear transaction, but the fact is these guys aren't going to let it happen. And so therefore, I think we need to get real. There's even in this wording a wording about the existing crypto out there that they will allow it to operate within their environment as long as that environment opens up and lets them see both sides of the transaction, which I can't imagine many of these people are going to want to do.
Well, let me try to simplify that a bit. So basically, they are acting like a clearinghouse, and unless they go through the clearinghouse, your crypto that you think is your little personal peer-to-peer secret, do your own thing, forget about it. Until it goes through their clearinghouse, it isn't going to be recognized. Did I state that accurately?
Yeah, that's good. And the other thing that we know from other people working in this area is that the whole crypto market is being centralized outside the United States. In fact, in the middle of the Indian Ocean,
You said that
in an island called Diego Garcia, which is a naval base where these huge .io servers are. So if you see that domain name, that's where it's being run out of, and it's a private island. You can't get on it, and the Navy, our Navy, recently gave the management of the .io domain and Diego Garcia to British Serco.
Okay. Well, I think we can pause there. I'm sure we will revisit. Is there, before we close out, can you give contact points? And do you provide like an e-letter to people that are on a mailing list or anything like that?
The answer is yes and no. We keep it low key and spread out, so we don't have a centralized.
Right.
But there is a website that's got this particular article you're talking about. It's called aimfortruth.org, AIM4truth.org, and they can find that there. They can see the information. And as with anything related to crypto, I think that I would love to believe that there is a way to make a democratic transaction mechanism. But the fact is, I know these guys. I've lived with them too long. I've been a victim of them for too long. They're never going to let it happen. And in fact, they have so many back doors into the transactions that everybody's trying to facilitate. That there's no way that this is going to be allowed to continue. And if people are being successful now, that's just because it's good for business as they march toward this unification, which it seems like they're accelerating.
All right. Well, Mike, we'll leave it there. I'm sure we'll be back together soon. Thank you for diving even deeper and uncovering more of these free market situation. Markets are not free, people. Get over the idea. And if you think crypto's a solution, you better take another look.